ESPN2, so that's different. And your credentials for Ohio State, most of those, Jerry said, they're all being left at will call. And for those of you who are getting parking, they will email that to you on Thursday. So that should take care of you there. With that, I think that's it.
Excuse me. I'm done. Kirk, how you doing? Good. How about you? Okay. Thanks, Steve, and good afternoon to everybody. Hope everybody had a good week last week. Talk a little bit about that, and then transition into this week's game, obviously. Certainly, good for us to have a bye. I imagine everybody feels that way. And I think it came at a good time for us, a good time for us to be together, and then also to be away from each other, too. I think that's important. Finishing the first part of the season 3-3 was certainly not a goal. To finish it with a 3-point loss, that stings for a couple of days, no question about that. Lingers a little bit. So it was good to get back on the field and back to work, and we did that on Tuesday. Everybody's in the building. Monday, got a workout in, and had a chance to watch the film, push that back to Monday. But a couple of days on the field, got to work, focusing on us partially, and then partial of the time was developmental work with our younger guys, and then we took a break and got back at it again on Sunday, which is kind of a normal deal for us. So that's pretty much where we're at this point. Now we're transitioning in the second half of the season. Obviously, it was 6-6 this year. So that's really where our focus is right now. During the course of last week, just to encourage our guys to think about that as a block, 6-week block, and get ready mentally and physically for that. And then transition in this game, obviously, we face a really big challenge this Saturday playing Ohio State. And pretty much any year I stand up here, and if you talk about Ohio State, you're talking about a team that's very talented. They're very well coached, and that's certainly the case this year in both of those areas. And as you might expect, ranked near the top of the national polls for good reason. They've got a really good football team. So very explosive offensively. You start the quarterback as a tremendous player. They got great receivers. And, big physical line, offensive line, probably as big as we've seen. And they're executing really at a high level, good tight ends, good running backs. So they're very explosive, I said, and they've really, got off things, score points in a hurry. I guess that's the thing that jumps out at you. Tough to knock them off their track. That's, I think, the biggest challenge there. Defensively, talented at all three levels. They've got really good defensive linemen. They've got outstanding linebackers and good guys in the secondary. And the other thing to notice about them real quickly is that they play a lot of guys on defense. There's a lot of players in and out, and it doesn't matter who's in there. They're playing at a really high level. They're multiple with their schemes. It's a new scheme. They've got a new defensive coordinator. It looks like he's done an outstanding job in a short amount of time, half the season, but they really play in sync, and they've been tough to get points on and move the ball against, and they play at the lead a lot of the time, which I think they probably enjoy that. But they've done a good job with that as well. Good on special teams, good specialists, good return guys, dangerous return guys. So all in all, it's just a really tough challenge, and then you factor on top of it, it's a tough environment to go into, tough Big Ten environment, always has been, and certainly won't be any different. And I think part of that, they've got a nice streak going. Part of that's the environment. The bigger part is that they're just a really good football team, good program, and have been historically, at least, since I started in this league in '81. So that part doesn't come as a surprise, but a big challenge for us. We're looking forward to getting ready for that and see where we measure up on Saturday. Our captains are the same four guys. Got Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, Kayvon Merriweather, and Riley Moss. I think that's alphabetical. And then the last thing, just real quickly, our kid captain, he won't be traveling with us, but young guy Gavin Miller from Ogden is a 13-year-old now who had surgery actually before he was born, and then a kidney transplant by age 1. And is now a very healthy 13-year-old doing well and, getting total support over at this family hospital, so that's great. And he's got a twin brother named Brayton, too, as well, so we'll be thinking about those guys when we're on the road here. That being said, I'll throw it out for questions.
What were your impressions during the bye week of watching film of the offense, and what can you do to improve the unit?
Yeah, the big thing we do in the bye week typically is, look at our system, and then bigger thing is look at our personnel and just talk about that, make sure we're all kind of on the same page. And, I think we're continuing to develop and evolve, if you will. And, the whole thing is about us getting better and executing better. And, I think the last time I talked with you guys was after the ball game in Illinois, and you go back, and it's you talk about 2 3-point losses, you can pick 5, 6 plays out of any game, and if, you convert a couple of those, it might be a different story. It might be, you never know how it's going to turn out. And I think it's like every year, that's kind of our focus right now. With our players, how can we do things as intelligently as possible and then execute the plays that are out there to be made, the makeable ones.
How do you go about doing that?
You practice. There's no pixie formula or pixie dust. You just practice, and it's 2 things I just mentioned. I think, you try to create your schemes to fit what your personnel can do the best, and hopefully we know more about our guys now than we did 6 weeks ago. But that, that's a transitional thing too, because you have guys with injury situations, et cetera. So it's never the same. But you know more about your football team, so you try to be a little bit more intelligent about your planning. And then we got to execute better, and that's focus, concentration, repetition, and part of it's us, and then part of it's the level of competition too. So it's a it's a complex equation, but there's no way I know of at least to getting better other than just working at it.
Kirk, obviously you want to score touchdowns,
Sure.
But how important is it Saturday to keep their offense off the field, to stay ahead of the change, to keep your offense on the field?
Yeah, that's the challenge. I think if you listen to our defensive guys, the thing that impresses them when you watch them, you watch game film and you watch cut-ups, and we spend a lot of time watching cut-ups. I think all coaches do. But you watch them sequentially, and the thing that jumps out at you is it is tough to knock them off the tracks. It's tough to get them behind in the count. And good defenses try to do that to offenses, is make them, have to go the long field or, 3rd and longs, those kinds of things. And, it's not easy to do it for this football team, because they're just really, really adept at what they do. And then they've got that explosive capability too with the receivers. And I think they had 2 first-rounders last year, I think. And, they feel like the guys on campus were better than or as good as. So that just gives you an indication of the kind of talent. And it's like a team we played a couple weeks ago. Like every play, you've got to be on top of your game, or it can be sudden death real fast for you.
From an injury standpoint, what's the latest on Deontay Vines and Keegan Johnson?
I think Deontay's got a chance, and then Keegan, when he's ready, I'll let you know. Right now, he's still trying to get back.
Traditionally, your offensive line, you kind of have a stagger. It seems like that's when you're at your best, where you have a couple of seniors that maybe start, maybe one of your guys who work their way up to be to play, and then kind of this cycling through. That hasn't been the case this year. How is the growth of that unit, and who do they kind of listen to? Because a lot of times those veteran voices have really helped boost some of your younger players.
Yeah, I think Mason's probably our most veteran guy up front, and I think I'm safe in saying that. And I think we started, 3 sophomores and 2 freshmen last time out, I think it was. And I might be wrong there because Nick couldn't go. Nick's a veteran player too, but he's been fighting some issues, injury issues. So, it's not the same as, but, I learned a painful lesson in 1983, 1984. We had, in 83, we had a really good offensive line. We were 7 seniors out of 10, which was good for 83. It wasn't so good for 84. It was an exciting year. But we had Ronnie Harmon to get us out of some jams. I'm still thinking about a play out there. He ran an 80-yard draw against Illinois. Safety blitz. We just kind of grabbed the, 7 guys that rushed, and then he made 1 guy miss and took it to the house. That's when I learned the value of a good skill player versus line. But you just work through it. That's what you do. And we were really young in 84, and we were pretty damn good in 85. So you just push through it and just keep trying to get better each week. And it's not a perfect situation, but that's where we're at right now, and we'll just keep working hard.
What do you remember about, this is your first meeting in Columbus since 2013. What do you remember about that game? I know there was a lot of 3 tight end usage, but you hung in there. Yeah. Are there any lessons you can kind of apply from that trip to this one?
Yeah, it's interesting in our series, from the last 23 years. We got smoked a couple times right off the bat, predictably. Smoked in the middle 2000s there, and then we had, basically it was a Big Ten championship game there in 99, or 2009, excuse me. Next to the last time we were there, and then 13, it was a hell of a football game. I remember it felt like they had 12 guys on the field at Braxton Miller and a first-round running back, so it was really tough to, same thing. I mean, you got really good receivers, you got a really good back, and I think it was Carlos Hyde, and you got a really good quarterback. So, they just put the pressure on you like we talked about a couple of weeks ago. But it was a really good game, tough game, competitive game, and, we tried to hold the ball, try to keep it out of their hands a little bit. And, had some success with that. Hit a big play, I think it was Doozy, down on the right sideline. So, that's kind of what it takes. You got to try to keep the score close and try to find a way maybe to create something and, see what we can do. But it's going to be a big challenge.
When you're in the red zone and in the passing game in the red zone and specifically inside the 10, what's kind of your coaching point, if you will, to the passing? You want to score touchdowns, obviously.
Sure.
But is there a either risk-averse strategies to go along with it? Like, look, if it's not there, throw it away. I mean, or is it just...
Yeah, it depends on down to distance and all that. One thing you don't want to do is go backwards and knock yourself out of field goal position. That wouldn't be inside the 10 necessarily, but I think we had a couple the other day that were, last time out, that were in that 20-yard line zone. So if you could take a sack now, and I'm thinking about a game specifically about 20 years ago, it wasn't involving us, but somebody took one painful sack, like, what are you doing? The guy just held the ball and knocked him out of field goal position. It's a little challenging. You get down inside the 10 because there's not a lot of room down there. The defense knows that, so they can really, cheat, if you will, because there's not as much field to cover, and then play things a little tighter. So it's, it's tough, and there's a lot of different ways. You can try to throw it in the end zone. You can try to get it, hit something underneath, and maybe run it in, those types of things. But, it's tough. That's why the points are tough down there. It helps if you can run the ball. That's a good starting point, too.
Sure. It seems like you guys are throwing more laterally or more short of the goal line as opposed to into the end zone. Is that based on your personnel more, or is that strategy based? Yeah,
it's strategy based, but I don't know that it's any different than any other. You try to, each game you match up and try to do what you feel might be effective, and but if you're throwing it short of the goal line, you're hoping that you're going to get a running catch. And I'm thinking of one game early in the season where we caught one on the 2 or whatever, and we couldn't turn up and score. It might have been a big play in the game, So that's kind of been representative of some things we've done, actually. And I'm thinking about a game, playing our last game, where we had a short completion that would have been down inside the 20, potential field goal touchdown situation, and we couldn't complete the pass. So those are the things, going back to the original question, those are the things that we've got to get corrected, or at least hopefully get corrected.
One thing that seemed to crop up is Illinois timing the snap against you guys. I don't know, is hard counts, is that something that is hard to develop with a young center and offensive line?
Yeah, we've got a young line right now, and you're on the road, and they're a good defensive football team. They did a good job on that, and it's a little tougher on the road, too. The cadence stuff's a little tougher on the road. It's going to be a challenge this week for us. But yeah, you want to do that if you can. Easier said than done.
Obviously, you see Rodgers and Manning, those guys, experts at it. How long does that take to develop where you get confident in a guy going up there?
Yeah, and again, it's more to your point earlier. It's more than just the quarterback. Although it sure helps when you got a guy like that. But it's part of the reason those guys are so famous too. It's a big part of what they do. Brady being the same category. So, but you got a bunch of other guys that are dependent on that too. And I'm standing here thinking about a false start this morning that kind of defeats that purpose. So and today's only Tuesday, so we got tomorrow to get that cleaned up. But those are the kind of things you worry about. 5-yard penalties, tough to overcome.
How do you prepare for an offense like this one of the best in the country? How do you keep your guys in the moment, level-headed?
Well, you just play your defense, and the hard part is simulating. We've had that discussion too, especially revolving this guys. I think it was Pryor and Braxton Miller, but where do you get somebody to try to duplicate what they do at quarterback? And we've used running backs, defensive backs, maybe that were high school quarterbacks in those situations, but we don't have a lot of guys that can duplicate what their receivers do. So a lot of that just comes back to awareness and just trying to play a really smart technique and try to keep the ball in front of you. But as far as duplicating it out on the practice field, it's hard to do because they got a lot of really good athletes at every position.
On the defensive line, what's the status of Wyatt Black?
Hopefully he'll be back, but it's, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully he'll be back. He's closer than he was. Sure would help. All hands on deck.
Coach, every week you come up here, you pay your respect to the opponent, whether it's South Dakota State or Michigan or whoever. This game, again, against the top 4 ranked team at their building, do you look at yourself as the underdog, or is every game kind of the same for you?
Oh, absolutely. We know we're underdogs. We know that, and our guys aren't stupid. And the rankings a month ago really didn't mean a lot. And I think, you can go back and look. I don't look at those things too often, but in fact, I'm not sure I look at them ever. But I'm guessing there's a lot of teams that were in there 4 weeks ago that have disappeared as much as everybody thought they knew what was going on. But there are a couple teams that are pretty predictable, and, this is one of them, certainly. And, we all suspected they'd be good. Coming into this whole thing, I didn't know what they'd look like on defense because of the, the change in philosophy and the change in system. But, had a chance to watch some Oklahoma State film, and they were awfully good there. So you figured that was going to work out pretty well. It has. So, and then on top of it, the talent level. And most recently, we saw these guys last year in the not championship game, but the last game of the season up in Ann Arbor. So, you just see them in cross film, you know what kind of talent they've had, and they've always had really good talent, but I think they're really at a all-time high right now. They've recruited very well, and, pretty much you look at every position. Got my attention in the draft again when the receivers were getting drafted, and you hear the experts say, well, they might have better ones back in Columbus. I'm like, I think we play these guys next year. Great. So here we go.
This seems like kind of the ultimate statement of your program. Defensively, you've got one of the best defenses in the country. They've got the best statistical offense in the country. When you look at your guys like Riley or Kayvon, 2 stars, worked up through the ranks, and now they're among the better in the country. And then you look at Marvin Harrison's kid on the other side. How does that maybe help you? Just because you know that the struggle that your guys had to get to this point, and how can that parlay into when times get rocky, and they're gonna, that they can actually weather through it?
I think it's just what you do in sports, and hopefully you do it in life too. But that's what sports do teach you. Is just things don't always go the way you want them to, or the way you draw them up, or the way you hope they're going to go. And you go out and compete. In football, at least you compete weekly and try to do the best you can do, and then you reassess it and then go back to work. And I think most of our guys understand. Some of our younger guys don't get that concept quite as well, and that's part of the benefit of being a little bit older and being through, having some experience. But that's really what it is. And then I know Iowa better than I know anything because I've been here a long time, 2 different stints, and things haven't changed. The format hasn't changed an awful lot. Like typically, we're going to play a couple teams a year that have recruited better, maybe have more of this, more of that, more seats in their stadium. But the lesson is that that doesn't always dictate the outcome, and it may slant it a little bit, but it doesn't dictate it. And it's a great thing about sports. You got an opportunity anytime you compete. So that's kind of how we look at it. We're realistic about it, but on Saturday, it's for that hour of competition, it's up to us to do what we can do, not knowing that we're facing a really big challenge. But I think our guys you mentioned, at least, they've been around. They understand. And Cooper's a young guy, talking about guys in the secondary, opposite of Riley, really, from that standpoint. But I think he understands, too. And, we know it's going to be a tough challenge. But, again, it gets back to just believing in the system, believing in each other, and competing as hard as you can.
Kirk, I think after the Illinois game, you said you thought the team took a step back offensively. So I was just wondering, over the bye week and heading into this week, maybe what are the 1 or 2 things you sort of keyed in on just to kind of regain that step and to continue taking those steps? Yeah,
there's nothing much I can tell the guys other than, it wasn't, and they knew that. They can feel that. Just like as crazy as it may sound, we lost against Michigan, but I think the guys, that I was referring to, I think they felt like they took a step forward and gained a little confidence. But we got knocked back a little bit last time out, so now the challenge is, can we get back up on our feet and compete better? And again, very talented group of guys, and they play 8, 10 guys. I've lost count how many guys play on that defensive line, but they all look pretty good. They all go hard, and they're pretty athletic and stout. So it's a new challenge, a different kind of challenge than we faced at Illinois. And halfway through, Illinois proved to be a pretty good defensive football team. But so are these guys. So it's a different challenge, and let's see how we handle this challenge. That's really our eyes are forward right now.
How would you evaluate Spencer Petras through the first 6 weeks?
I think he's done a good job handling the circumstances, and that's really going back to the evaluation question. That's really how we do it. We try to be realistic about what the picture looks like, and then make a fair assessment. I think he's done a lot of good things. I think he's improved. I think he's gained confidence, as crazy as that may sound. And I think he's doing a lot of good things out there. And we just need to get better collectively, offensively. That's my encouragement.
How confident are you in the QB situation if Spencer couldn't go, if he's injured?
Well, I mean, I've said it before publicly, and I still feel the same way. Alex has played and stepped in and did a good job, so I'm guessing he'll do that. He's practicing well. It's just that, in our opinion, Spencer's practicing better right now, and it's kind of where it's at. But I think we have 2 guys that have experience that we feel good about and act like quarterbacks. And I'm not suggesting the other guys don't. They're just younger right now. They're further along in the development.
Coach, what is the locker room like?
Today or Saturday or what? I think good. I think our guys are respectful of their opponent, first of all, which we try to be each and every week. I think they're realistic. They know what we're up against, and I think they're anxious to start playing again. The bye week was good. It was good for everybody to have some air and just separation and just kind of get their thoughts back together. And again, I think I said bigger picture, which we're past the big picture stage right now, but the bigger picture is the 6-week season. On Sunday it transitioned into this week, and that's really all that matters right now. So, we got our hands plenty full just trying to get ready for this team, but we're excited to take the challenge.
I would say Luke, going back home this weekend, Luke Lachey, what do you remember about his recruitment? I mean, it's an interesting young man. I mean, he seems like such a nice kid.
Yeah.
Like a basketball player. I don't know.
First of all, he is a really nice kid, and he seems that way, and he is. I knew about his dad's career, obviously, and I guess one thing I remember was, we went to his game coming off a bye week that had to be our bye week his senior year, and he caught a fade route right in front of us against a DB that was maybe 5'6", and obviously he was pretty tall at that point too. So it's good coaching, throw the ball up there to the tall guy against the shorter guy. But they used him in multiple ways. But to us, he just looked like a really good athlete. To Scott's point earlier, a guy that I thought had great growth potential, and I think that's what we've seen, develop over the last couple of years here. And he's had some issues, like just medical stuff that was weird, not just that kind of knocked him off the tracks here for a significant amount of time, maybe a couple months total since he's been here. But on the field, you just see the steady progress and growth, and he's got a great attitude. I think probably the biggest thing this year is blocking, really, and we noticed that when we started fall camp in August, his blocking's really taking a big step forward. So, and you guys have seen him catch the football. He's kind of fearless out there, and if you get it near him, he kind of comes down with it a lot.
Do you feel like he's the type of guy that next year could be, a prototypical number one when Sam's gone?
Yeah, I think both those guys are really playing at a high level right now. Me personally, both Sam and Luke. So really happy about that, and I think we got some young guys coming along too, which is good.
Back to the red zone. Do you feel like some of the routes that are like closer to the goal line are more higher percentage, and you try to avoid maybe some of the fades in the corner of the end zone? Is that mainly personnel? I mean, if you have more McNutt, maybe you do that, but maybe
fades a lot of the time are personnel driven. Yeah, a lot of times. So it helps you if you got a 6'3" guy out there that can go get it. I'm not sure Brody's that guy right now, but the good news is we got him on the field now. It's been 6-7 weeks he's been on the field continuous, and you can't get good until you practice. You really can't. So when we're watching him, we see him growing in confidence right now. His technique's getting better, and I think he's going to be a really good football player. He's a tremendous young guy. I just talked about Luke, and he's the same way. So I don't know if it's this week, but at some point I imagine he'd be in that discussion.
I didn't see Terry Roberts on the depth chart. I'm assuming he's available.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not, unfortunately. So,
that the injury from Illinois? Is that?
Yeah, still. Yeah, he's got a lower leg injury. So,
building off of that question, with young players backing up Cooper and Riley, you talked about the bye week being a chance to kind of push those guys forward. How do you feel about Jameson, TJ, and the steps they might have taken in the last 2 weeks to be prepared?
They're improving each and every week, and that's practice is so important. It's important for everybody, obviously younger guys, and we're never as deep as we want to be. That's traditional. So and talking about two guys that haven't played a lot of other some special team stuff. So they're getting their feet wet there. And in a perfect world, we really have all three of our corners available and ready to go. But those guys jump in, they'll do a good job.
What about their quarterback, C.J. Stroud? I mean, they seem to line up, and might as well just say they're the Big Ten MVP every year, but you haven't played all of them, because of the scheduling weirdness. But what does he do well, and what's going to be your challenge?
Yeah, I mean, good luck or bad luck, but it seems like every time we play them, they've got somebody pretty good taking snaps. And maybe the least dynamic and least publicized guy would be the guy that won the national championship in 2002, right? I mean, nobody's talking about him in August, and they ran the table, and I think he was like an aeronautical engineer or something like that, if I remember correctly. So, it just, they've had good quarterbacks, and Stroud looks like he's 28 years old back there. He's a really good football player, just, total control, really talented, and it's going to be another challenge.
And then as far as, you try to match up, you think with their athletes, you want to definitely go 5 DB, but then they also have 2 running backs who can play pretty much anywhere in the country. Are they more power-based in the way they run, or is it just a little...
Well, start their line. I mean, their line's really big and physical, 2 huge tackles. So, that sort of starts a problem. But it's not the same discussion as a couple weeks ago, but somewhere in that, if you want to defend the whole field, it makes it a little tougher to hold up against the run. And, their backs are very capable. So, you just kind of got a little bit of a cat and mouse and try to figure out where you're gonna lean left or right and how you're going to do it. Hopefully not be too obvious with it.
I mean, Stroud hasn't ran a lot. Is that because he hasn't had to?
Doesn't have to. I mean, yeah. So, I don't know if that's good or bad. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he can run. Yeah.
Logan Lee was talking today about his breathing techniques. How much have you seen him kind of really care about that kind of little attention to detail?
Every player is different, and we put a lot of stuff in front of our guys and encourage them to give it some consideration and thought. Some guys are certainly more disciplined than others at what they do or choose to do. So, that's just coaching or whatever and making things available to guys. But no surprise with Logan. I mean, he's a pretty disciplined, routine type person, individual. And I've joked like he's like a 45-year-old guy. He's the only married guy on the team, and it makes perfect sense. So that probably kind of fits in that whole same package. Not that I do breathing techniques just because I'm married. I mean, so there's no correlation there.
Coach, in this type of venue, I heard from the players today that you guys would pump some noise to try to get a feel for what it's going to be like. I mean, how do you prepare young players going to Ohio State and playing in that 100,000 fan stadium?
Yeah, it's a good exercise, but it's not the same. It's not the same, and especially. And we haven't been there to the point earlier. It's been, 7, 8 years since we've been there. So I think I remember the right side, at least where we used to be on the bench, the right side being really noisy. Penn State, for sure, there's student sections down there, and if you're down in that end, it's a little bit of a challenge, kind of like our north end zone probably. So, but yeah, and it's not just there. I mean, in the Big Ten, you've got several places that are really a challenge because the crowd gets into it, and they know how to get into it also. So, yeah, there's really no preparation like experience. That's the best way to get through.
Talking to Mason, he seems much more mature in his mannerisms than his age. Is that by circumstance, or is that just the person that he is?
Yeah, it's just the person he is, and I just talked about Logan, and not the same, but there's some similarities. Some guys are that way. Riley's a pretty carefree guy, and we got a multitude of personalities on every team, and that's the fun part about it. Kayvon would be a different story, and you just go right through the deal. But some guys are old souls, and I would say Logan might be that way. Mason, he's pretty cerebral, pretty kind of analytical with everything he does, and that can be a good thing. Sometimes it can work against you too.
I know you've traveled injured guys here and there. If they're veterans, is Justin, going back to Columbus, is that anything?
You're letting the cat out of the bag there. Yeah, I haven't told him that, but yeah, I had that thought a couple days ago.
Okay,
so just keep it quiet. Just keep it under
I won't tell
low burn right now. But yeah, I don't know what our roster is going to look like. We typically have room, and for guys that are starters, established starters, we have an open mind on that, and certainly it makes sense if we can fit them in. So fingers crossed, I think we'll be able to. And he's doing better, but it's the mental part of injuries is tough, and it hit him hard, disappointing.
You touched on the 2017 game. In your opinion, is that kind of one of the more complete performances that you've had as a program under your tenure? And what is it going to take to, is it going to take another complete performance to potentially go to Ohio State and beat them?
I wish I could tell you what we did exactly that week that was different than anything else we do. But, the fact of the matter is sometimes things just happen, and sometimes, rarely, it goes like that one did. Usually it's the other way. Boy, I didn't see that one coming, and boy, you just get hit by a train. So that's one thing I've learned long before I was a head coach, that sometimes that just happens. And when it happens on the good side, man, that's a great feeling. But typically you go back and look, and there's nothing mystical or magical about it. It just happened, and that day things really clicked. Hopefully all the plans we draw up are with the idea of like having success, But there's other days too where, boy, I didn't see that one coming and nothing worked. And boy, it's a tough feeling. So it'd be great if they balanced up, but they don't.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.